الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. Last week we had started discussing verses 30 to 34 from Surah Al-Baqara. And in these verses, the announcement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He was going to send His Khalifa into the world. And the response to this by the angels who could identify that because this human being is going into the world and he's made from the substance of the world, then he's going to want to fulfill his worldly desires as well. And when this human being makes an effort and exerts all his energies and resources in fulfilling his desires, then definitely no one can fulfill all of their desires, because their desires will conflict. One's desires will conflict with another's. And because of this, there are sure to be struggles and fights and bloodshed as a result. So the angels were correct. They were not incorrect in the conclusion that they formed. No one can argue with what the angels were saying. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَن يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. It was a completely true statement. The human being comes and disrupts the systems of the world, and human beings, they conflict with each other and they shed each other's blood. And this has been happening since the beginning of mankind, starting with the sons of Adam alayhi salam, Habil and Qabil. So the angels were not incorrect. The issue with what they were saying is that they were overlooking the other aspects of the human being and the positive traits that the human being had because of those same properties. Because due to this what is called in the philosophers' language, the quwwa shahwiyya and the quwwa ghadabiyya. The quwwa shahwiyya it's this desire that a person has, this carnality that a person has, that they need to fulfill, that they need to quench. And from that comes lust and desire and all of the things that sprout from this, greed and so on and so forth. So it's true, the human being has that. And the human being also has quwwa al-ghadabiyya, which is the defensive mechanism or the aggressive tendency of the human being, where when faced with some kind of confrontation, the human being becomes aggressive in different ways. The fight or flight mindset that comes in. So the angels had understood a part of what these tendencies cause, but they hadn't understood the whole picture. They did not know the whole picture. So what was the whole picture? That because of these two things, the human being has also the ability to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that the angels can't, because they are pre-programmed. The angels cannot have that kind of love. Even the love that the angels have is programmed. Like in that hadith, إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا دَعَا جِبْرِيلٌ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves someone, He calls Jibreel alayhi salam and tells him, إِنِّي أُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحْبِبْهُ. I love so and so, you must love him. فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيلٌ. Jibreel starts loving him. And then he announces in the sky, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ فَلَانًا فَأَحِبُّهُ. He announces in the skies to all the other angels, Allah has loved so and so, you must love him. They start loving him. So even their love is not a voluntary act. But the human being, because of this tendency, he has the capacity to love voluntarily with an immense amount of intensity. So if he channels this towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that the angels cannot. And as far as the aggressive tendencies are concerned, well, these are the tendencies that enable the human being to protect himself as well, and protect his people, and protect the world as well if he wants, and uphold systems of justice, where he identifies that a rule has been broken. That aggressive tendency that is also referred to as anger, as behavioral psychologists explain it, this is a marker, an indicator that a rule has been broken in the mind, in the psyche, in the system of that person who is getting angry. That there was something that was not supposed to happen, it was not allowed to happen, it has happened. So a person is responding to it. That could be a very good thing. In the case of both tendencies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him, the human being, a third power that enables him to balance everything out, and that is the power of aql, the intellect. That through intellect, that set of desires, carnality that the human being has can also be laid to a perfect balance. And that aggressive tendency that he has can also be put into a perfect state of balance. So you're left with a human being who takes these tendencies and channels them into a very productive and powerful way. And the perfect example for all of mankind is Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That yes, there were occasions when he got angry, but how did the Sahaba describe him? He never got angry for himself because of a personal loss. Ever. But when a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was broken, then nothing could stand in front of his anger. In other words, his anger was so visible, and of course just he had that personality that his anger, it would overwhelm the person in front of him, even if the Prophet ﷺ wasn't saying anything. So, the human being had these qualities. Now add to it another quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show to the angels. And that was the quality of knowledge. Now the angels also have knowledge. The angels also have certain types of knowledge, but as they expressed themselves, La ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana, we only have the knowledge that you have programmed into us. Of course, before the human being came into the world came into existence. The world was already existent, and the things in this world were already existent. But the angels only knew the names and the properties of those things that they were put in charge of, that they were dealing with. They did not have the ability to learn about the properties and the characteristics of the other things that exist in this universe. So they were not able to identify them. They were not able to understand what its benefits and what its usage is. Nor did they know how to utilize those things. So this is where the superiority of Adam alayhi salam came into play, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him the names. Angels had those things around them for Allah knows how long, but they were not able to acquire the knowledge of those things. And what is the use and what is the purpose of those things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam the names of everything, and Mufassirin mentioned that names means that not just identifying the object, just identifying things is not necessarily knowledge. But to understand what is the usage, how is a certain thing supposed to be used, what are its benefits or harms, this is knowledge. And then the ability to acquire that knowledge about all the things in the universe, angels do not have that capacity. Adam alayhi salam did have the capacity, and it was transferred to his progenies. And the human being, based on this capacity, has done everything that they have done in this world. Everything that we have achieved on this planet is because of this capacity of ours. That we can study things, we can understand them, we can understand their properties, their characteristics, their benefits, their harms, and what proportion they are supposed to be used in, what is the best usage of it. Allah has given the human being this power, this ability to do this, and that is why the human being is most suitable to be the Khalifa of this earth. And the angels were sufficient for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the heavens, in the skies. Now, so this is the sort of comparison between the malaika, which are ulwi, they are created in the heavens, they belong in the heavens, they're created from the substances that are in the heavens, they are not an earthly creature or creation. Then you have the human being who is created from the substance of this earth, but he's not all just the substances of this earth. He has something called the ruh, and the ruh has come from above. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. The ruh has come directly from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends angels to implant that ruh, to infuse that ruh into this body that is growing in the womb of the mother. So, the human being does have some ulwi, some celestial characteristics and properties, some spiritual properties. We are not completely material beings. We are material and we are also spiritual beings. So we have the body with all its functions, its physiology. We have the ruh with its spirituality. And then we have the power of the intellect, the aql, that puts all of this together in the form of a complete human being. So the human being is in fact a very powerful creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all these aspects. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based on these merits, decided to give him khilafah, give this human being khilafah of this earth. In other words, he was going to be the custodian of this earth on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Now, some people objected that, well, couldn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have taught that to the angels? And isn't it kind of like an unfair test where books are studied, but some students are taken aside and they're given the answers to the test in advance, and then they have to give the answers? The answer is no. That's not what this is. This is an even classroom where everyone has the chance to learn something very complicated, complicated calculations, such as in calculus itself. Now there's a lot to absorb and there's a lot to focus on. Not everyone is going to understand it the same. There are some who will attend that class and come out with very little, and there are others who will come out of that class having mastered that particular field. Everyone has the equal opportunity, but not everyone has equal abilities. And not everyone has equal familiarity or power to grasp concepts and then apply concepts. So that was one comparison between these two creations. But then we were introduced to the third creation, and that was the jinn, that was Iblis. And Iblis's problem, like we discussed last week, was that he felt he was superior. أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. The issue that stopped him from prostrating to Adam alayhi salam was that he felt he was superior. How could he prostrate to something that he was superior of? Now there's a little bit of history that some Mufassirin have mentioned. Iblis was from the jinns, and there are some narrations that talk about how the jinns caused a lot of trouble on the earth before the creation of Adam alayhi salam. And because of that, they were banished to mountains and jungles, and they were told to live there. But Iblis managed to absolve himself of this, and he came out as someone who was never involved. But inside he had this desire to be given the responsibility, given the rulership of earth. Now this makes the story a little bit more interesting. Because since he was aspiring to be given the khilafah of the earth, to be made the king, you can say, of all the jinns, and the ruler, he started worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala earnestly. So his degree of sincerity was not anywhere close to the sincerity of the angels. This was a means to an end, to try to get close to Allah, get close to the angels, and then get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continue worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that he would be given this grand status. Now everything is reversed on him. That another creation has been brought, and it's being announced that he is going to be the Khalifa of Allah in the world. So right away, Iblis is at odds with this creation. To make matters worse for Iblis, or difficult for Iblis, he has to show his submission and his obedience to this new creation. So someone who was aspiring for that position, and all of a sudden not only is he told that you're not getting that position, but rather you have to submit to the one who is given that position, it was too much for him to handle. And that was in fact the test of his sincerity. Were you really worshipping Allah? Because the idea is not to worship Adam. We mentioned before that prostration was a prostration of greeting him and showing respect to the choice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if someone was worshipping only for the sake of Allah, and their only objective was to please Allah, they would have done whatever Allah asked them to, because they have no vested interest in it for themselves. They have no share for themselves personally. But Iblis failed that test, because he did keep a share for himself. That after all of this, he's thinking that after all I've done, this is what I get. Even though if he had realized that all of this was to please Allah, and if this pleases Allah, I will do this also. But he got stuck there. Just like that, everyone has their test. And tests are never the situations that we're comfortable in. Tests are always those situations in which we are most uncomfortable in. That is the test. The moment our brain starts heating up, and the blood starts rushing, the heart starts beating, and the emotions start flowing, and things get out of hand, that's our test. When we're pulled out of our comfort zone. So, the angels thought that they had understood the tendencies of Adam alayhi salam, but they had only understood a piece of that, a part of that. Iblis made the same mistake. The difference was, though, that the angels were sincere worshippers of Allah. Iblis was not sincere. Iblis said, "Ana khayru minhu," I'm better than him. But he could not substantiate that. His feeling of superiority and betterness was coming out of the strength, power, heat, intensity that fire has. And earth and dirt, it just lies there. What can it do? So he was looking at it from this perspective, a narrow perspective. But what about all the other properties of earth compared to the properties of fire? Fire, by its nature, is harmful and destructive. The nature of fire is that it destroys. And the nature of earth is that it does not destroy. It does the opposite. Fire has no qarar. It has no stability. It has no consistency. It leaps, flames, leaping, jumping, rising, falling, spreading. And earth, soil, it's stable. It's firm. It's consistent all the way through. Fire is not a source of provision. It's not a source of rizq for anything. There's nothing in fire that can nourish you. But the earth and the soil is, in fact, it has all the asbab of rizq for the makhluk of this world. They exist in this earth, in this soil. Secondly, or fourthly, I should say, the soil has the ability to take something and grow it. You plant a seed, it gives you a tree. You plant a seed of a plant, it's one little seed, it goes in, it'll give you a plant with hundreds of seeds. Plus the fruit or the vegetable or the grain on top of that. Whatever you put inside, it takes it, processes it, multiplies it and gives it right back. What happens if you put something in fire? It'll finish it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the earth the source of sustenance. And fire, if you study fire, it's simply there to do khidmah of what the earth is providing. Is it not true? The earth provides wood. The job of fire is simply to do the khidmah of that wood in such a way that it can provide heat, warmth, light, whatever it is. The earth yields the food, the grains, the vegetables, the fruits. Fire can help process it, make it more edible. Earth is yielding the animals, fire will help you cook those animals. So in fact, the earth is much more superior to fire. Because the lives of all the creatures in this world depend on this earth. And if it were not for this earth and its creatures, fire would not have any use. And isn't it interesting that if you pour earth over fire, the fire is extinguished. It's extinguished. Its harm goes away. But when fire is lit on earth, it spreads and it causes doom and destruction. So look at it from this perspective. It sounds a little bit philosophical, but we come back to the Quran, and there are so many places in the Quran where it is telling us to think about this earth, ponder and reflect upon the treasures in this earth, the properties of this earth, how it grows, how it yields, how it gives shelter, how stable it is. It is mihad, it is bisat, it is firash, it is qarar. So many words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this earth that look what it's doing for you. I have made pathways in it. I've softened it. جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. I've made it soft for you, humble for you. I have put it at its disposal, at your disposal. The Quran repeatedly says, بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا وَبَارَكَ فِيهَا وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي أَرْبَعَةِ أَيَّامٍ. Allah put barakat in this earth. And from it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distributed and decided and proportioned the rizq that was going to come out of this earth. So if you look at it from that perspective, Iblis was very badly mistaken that he was only able to identify some of his traits that he thought were making him very, very powerful. And he only looked at the fact that earth stays down and fire rises. But he forgot everything else. He forgot everything else. Now the angels made the mistake of short-sightedness because they don't have the ability to have knowledge. But they were sincere. Their only agenda is to please Allah. So they passed the test even though they did not have knowledge. But Iblis did have the ability to learn. He could have learned. Iblis could have won the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he failed. And because he was not sincere, his type of ignorance took him down and it brought him to doom until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Now, Adam alayhi salam is brought into Jannah. And He is brought into Jannah so that he can see and understand what the perfect world looks like, what things look like when they're perfect, and how to benefit from them in their finest, complete, and most perfect form. He is given this exposure so that he can transfer to his progeny the concept of perfection, that there is something called perfection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it for you. That's where you're going. The world that you're living in is going to be imperfect. The people here are going to be imperfect. And this is transitory. This is temporary. It's going to end. So Adam alayhi salam is there in Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates for him his wife. And he says, you both live here. And you are allowed to benefit from everything in this Jannah. From everything. Adam alayhi salam's specialty, the human being's specialty, is to learn the characteristics and the usages of things. So go and benefit from all the things, except for one thing. There's this one tree, you are not to eat from this tree. If you do, if you come close to this, then you will end up wronging yourselves. وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Then you will do a great dhulm on yourselves. Now, Iblis, after having been rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he went back to Allah and asked for respite, that give me a chance, give me time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ. Go ahead, you have time. He pledged that he's going to lead them all astray. لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I'm going to lead every single one of them astray. And he said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. He described the different tactic he's going to use. لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. I'll be waiting there on the straight path. For anyone who tries to walk on that straight path, I will be there. And for anyone who is walking on it, ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. I'm going to approach those people who are trying to tread this straight path from every single angle, from every single direction. And oh Allah, I will prove to you that they are not your grateful slaves. I will make them mine. وَلَا أُضِلَّنَّهُمْ وَلَا أُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. I am going to convince them, I am going to command them, I am going to use all kinds of tactics to get them to change your systems, to change your ways. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, you go and try. قال هذا صراط علي مستقيم إن عبادي ليس لك عليهم سلطان إلا من اتبعك من الغاوين. This is fine, but I'm telling you, you will have no control over my slaves. You have no power over them, except for those who choose to follow you. Those stray ones who choose to follow you on their own. So Shaitan started his work from his arch enemy, Adam alayhi salam. Now, the tricks of Shaitan are such that he makes things appear different to what they actually are. In fact, opposite to what they actually are. His thing with Adam alayhi salam, his trick was that he said, look, this is, what you are doing is wonderful, and this is a beautiful place that you have. But here's the thing, Adam. Allah has created you to be the Khalifa of earth. Your stay here is temporary. And when you leave here, you will be sent far away from Allah. You will be far away from Allah. Right now you are in a state that you will always be pleasing Him. And whoever lives here will only be pleasing Him. But you are about to be sent to a place where you will be far from Him, and you are in a position where you will disobey Him. Do you want to disobey Allah? Or do you want to stay in a place where you will always obey Allah? So, in this way, he started doing waswasa to Adam alayhi salam and his wife. هل أدلكم على شجرة الخلد وملك لا يبلى? Shall I tell you of a tree that once you eat from it, you stay here forever? شجرة الخلد وملك لا يبلى. And it gives you a dominion, a kingdom that never finishes. ما نهاكما ربكما عن هذه الشجرة إلا أن تكونا ملكين أو تكونا من الخالدين وقاسمهما إني لكما لمن الناصحين فدلاهما بغرور. No, Allah has, when Adam a.s. said, no, Allah told me not to have that, eat from that tree. He said, you don't understand. You have to understand the mizaj, you have to understand the temperament, the reason behind the why, the reason behind the command, the why behind the command. What is that in this case? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has only stopped you from eating this tree because if you do, then you will become like angels. And then you will stay here forever. And Allah doesn't want you to stay here forever. He wants you to leave Jannah. So your only ticket to permanent entry here is this tree. And he said, look, what do I have to gain and what do I have to lose? I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose. إِنِّي لَكُمَا لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. I am a sincere well-wisher. In this way, he played tricks on Adam alayhi salam and Hawa, and then they came close. Now, the Quran has an interesting way of describing this. The Quran, when talking about, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them about the tree, Allah said, that tree. That tree. Stay away from that tree. When Iblis presented it, he said, this tree. He brought it close. Taqreeb. It's right here. It's right in front of you. It's within reach. It's within your access. Just have it. Khair, they came close to the tree. فَأَكَلَا مِنْهَا. They ate, and right away the clothing of Jannah was removed from their bodies. And they started covering themselves with leaves of the trees of Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called out to them, وَنَادَاهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا أَلَمْ أَنْهَكُمَا عَنْ تِلْكُمَا الشَّجَرَةِ وَأَقُلْ لَكُمَا إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمَا عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ. Did I not tell you to stay away from that tree? In other words, it should be far away from you. You should not get close to it. I told you, don't come close to it. لَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Don't come close to it. Keep it as that tree. Well, I told you that shaitan is your open enemy. He is not your friend. He will never be your friend. So then they realized that they had become from the zalimeen. So they said, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. They both started crying, and they both started making tawbah and istighfar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and saying, oh Allah, if you don't forgive us, then we are lost, we are doomed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did pardon them, but He said, اهبطوا منها جميعا بعضكم لبعض عدو وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ. Now the time has come for you to descend to that world, to that earthly life. And remember that from this day onwards, you will be enemies of each other. You human beings will be enemies of each other. Why and how? You will always be at odds. Of course, except for those who help each other in good things, who help each other in getting close to Allah. But generally speaking, from now till the end of the history of the world, people will have odds against each other, and they will spend their lives opposing or conflicting or in some kind of a conflict with other people. And yes, in this world you will stay for a little while. Mustaqar, there's a place for you to stay here. وَمَتَاع, there are things for you to use. إِلَى حِينٍ, for some time. So in this way, Adam alayhi salam descended to the earth, and the story of mankind on earth begins. And we'll continue this inshaAllah in future sessions by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.